tonight, when the sun goes down, you're going to flip a switch. Light will flood the room. You won't think twice about it. But for 99.9% of human history, that switch didn't exist. When the sun set, the world went dark. And the real answer to what your ancestors did next is far stranger than they just slept. Picture it. No streetlights, no phone glow, no hum of a refrigerator, just a small fire, a circle of tired faces, and hours of darkness stretching ahead. You might assume they collapsed the moment the light failed. They didn't. Something else happened first. Something that shaped the way your brain still works today. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years studying the Jew/Hoansi people of the Kalahari Desert, one of the last groups on Earth to live largely without artificial light. She recorded their daytime conversations. Then she recorded what they talked about after dark. The difference was enormous. During the day, conversations were practical. Complaints, gossip, logistics, who owes who meet, arguments over small grievances. But at night, something shifted. Over 90% of nighttime talk turned into storytelling. Myths, histories, tales about distant relatives, ancestors, spirits, and the shape of the world. Why would darkness change the subject? Firelight strips away your ability to do almost anything else. You can't hunt. You can't gather. You can't fix tools with any real precision. Your eyes, so dependent on daylight, become nearly useless for detailed work. So the body waits, and the mind wanders somewhere it doesn't get to wander during the day. This is the first strange truth. Darkness didn't just end the day. It opened a second world, a world built entirely out of voice, memory, and imagination. Think about what a fire actually does to a group of people. It pulls them into a tight circle. It lights faces from below, which your brain reads as slightly eerie, even now. It flickers, which means shadows never sit still. Every flicker adds motion to a story, whether the storyteller wants it to or not. Around this glow, people weren't just passing time. They were transmitting culture. Wiesner's research suggested that these firelit stories functioned as a nightly classroom. Children absorbed the group's history, its warnings, its rules about cooperation, all wrapped inside tales they'd remember far longer than a flat instruction ever could. You still do this. You just don't call it that. Consider how differently you feel telling a personal story with the lights on versus the lights off. Around a campfire, at a sleepover, in a car at night, people confess things. They tell stories they wouldn't tell over lunch. Darkness lowers a strange kind of social guard. Psychologist Robert Cialdini has written about how physical conditions shape self-disclosure, and darkness consistently ranks among the strongest. Less visibility of the listener's face seems to reduce the fear of judgment. You reveal more when you can't fully see who's watching you reveal it. Now push this further back. Before language even existed in its modern form, some researchers argue that firelight itself may have shaped the pressure toward complex speech. Richard Wrangham, a primatologist known for his work on the role of cooking in human evolution, has argued that controlled fire didn't just cook food and extend digestion time. It extended the day. It created hours where hands were idle, but minds were not. Idle hands and an active mind, night after night, for hundreds of thousands of years. That is an extraordinary evolutionary pressure. A pressure toward language, memory, and narrative skill, simply because there was nothing else to do with the dark. Here's the part that should unsettle you a little. Your ancestors weren't relaxing after dusk. Not entirely. Nighttime was also when the most dangerous predators hunted. Big cats, hyenas, threats that stalked more effectively in darkness than daylight. So the fire wasn't just for warmth or storytelling. It was a wall. A thin, flickering wall between the group and everything waiting in the black beyond it. This is why your brain still reacts to darkness the way it does. That flicker of unease when a room goes suddenly dark. That instinct to want a light on, even just a phone screen, before you fall asleep. That isn't superstition. It's inherited. For most of human history, unlit darkness genuinely meant danger. Bodies that stayed slightly alert after dusk were bodies that survived to pass that alertness on. You are, quite literally, wired by generations of ancestors who did not fully relax until the fire was built and the circle was closed. So the evenings weren't calm in the way you might imagine. They were watchful, warm, close, Full of voices and firelight, yes, but also alert. A strange blend of intimacy and vigilance that doesn't really exist in your evenings anymore, because artificial light removed the vigilance almost entirely. And then, eventually, sleep. But even sleep looked different. Historian A. Roger Eckert spent decades combing through diaries, court records, and medical texts from pre-industrial Europe and found repeated references to a first sleep and a second sleep, separated by an hour or more of quiet wakefulness in the middle of the night. People woke sometime after midnight, lay in the dark, sometimes talked with a partner, sometimes prayed, sometimes simply thought, and then drifted back down into a second block of sleep before dawn. This wasn't insomnia. It was normal. It may have been the default human sleep pattern for most of history, only erased once artificial light pushed bedtimes later and compressed the night into one unbroken block. Sit with that for a second. Somewhere in your genetic memory is a body that expects to wake in the middle of the night. Not from stress, not from a bad dream, just because that's what a body without electric light naturally does. If you've ever woken at 3 in the morning for no clear reason, calm, not anxious, just quietly awake in the dark, you may be experiencing something closer to your species' baseline than the 8-hour block you've been told is normal. So what did ancient humans actually do after dusk? They didn't simply sleep, and they didn't simply socialize. They built a nightly ritual out of necessity. Firelight, storytelling, vigilance, broken sleep, all bound together into a rhythm that shaped memory, bonded groups, and passed down the entire accumulated knowledge of a culture, one flickering evening at a time. Darkness wasn't empty time. It was some of the most important time humans ever had. Now think about your own evenings. The lights come on. The screens glow. You could, in theory, work or scroll or consume information until the exact moment you fall asleep, and many nights you do exactly that. The vigilance is gone because nothing in your living room is hunting you. But so, often, is the storytelling. So is the shared circle. So is the second sleep, smoothed away by a lamp your ancestors never had. You didn't lose the instinct for firelit ritual. You just stopped feeding it. Somewhere underneath the glow of your phone is a nervous system still waiting for a story, still expecting the dark to mean something, still half hoping someone will lower their voice and say, "Let me tell you what happened." Tonight, when you flip that switch, you'll erase in half a second what your ancestors spent hours building every single night for hundreds of thousands of years.